I'm here with Lenley Hensarling of Aerospike at the National Retail Federation's big conference, and it keeps getting bigger every year. Lenley, thank you for being here.
Thank you very
At the big conference this year, what is the first thing that you observed? What is it that struck out, as you have probably come to this show for many times, but what seems to be different this year for you?
Well, I think the big thing we're seeing here this year is that data is behind everything that's happening with retail. Data to drive artificial intelligence and machine learning, but also to increase the personalization of the experience both in-store and online.
So when people talk about artificial intelligence and the data, it's, you have to be able to not just collect good data, but manage it, make sense out of it. So it's all about data. And I can imagine that when you work with your customers, you see all different kinds of data. Tell us a little bit more about what's important to know when you're applying AI and ML technologies to data. What might be some of the things that people don't always realize?
The big thing we see, and when we usually step into these situations, is really about scale and performance, and where those converge, the need for massive scalability, dealing with millions of customers, but also maintaining a certain level of performance that's by some definition real time. Because in retail, in dealing with customers, they don't want you to have old data and try and sell them the thing that they bought last week, let's say. They want you to anticipate what they're interested in and put the things in front of them that anticipate what they're thinking about. They've come to just understand that that's possible in dealing with Amazon and other customers, and now that expectation goes across everything. And so we can provide that same experience no matter what the scale they have. And that's a key thing, to be able to continue to deliver a real-time, in-the-moment experience as you scale.
Is this becoming more significant of a consideration now with both online and in-store data sources, and you having to look across these two channels? Is that becoming more significant, more difficult?
Yeah, exactly. People are really struggling with the omni-channel or multi-channel experience for the customer. When they go to the website, they get one experience, and we tend to have a lot of data on them. We tend to know what they've bought, but when they go in the store, they're to some extent anonymous.
Right.
And the experience is very different. And they may not know where the things they want are in the store necessarily. So having a lot of data that's online and combining that with the data that's gained in the store can lead to a much better experience. And I think that the customer's expectation now is really about having that same level of anticipation of what they're interested in, even when they're in the store. So that, as an example, when they go to pick up an in-store purchase that they bought online, you don't often get other things that might have been in the cart laid out with it and say, are you still interested in these things, or have you thought about these? And that's a missed opportunity for retailers. But not combining those two experiences really leads to a discontinuity, and we think that it just expands the demand for more data from both that in-store channel and the online channel, and merging them together provides a much better customer experience.
Now, I got to imagine that there are parts of the year that are busier for online than not, like holiday season, times when people are shopping online more than at other times. Is that a challenge that you have to deal with, or is that part of what's already out there?
I think that's a challenge, and it's really what I call it's the opportunity that the cloud really presents us, right? And everybody thinks about elasticity in the cloud, but a lot of solutions don't deal with that well. As an example, we've got a customer, Wayfair, who spoke about this at one of our conferences. They have something called Way Days, and their demand spikes really, really high. And they were able to burst into the Google Cloud And you may have heard some announcements about Wayfair being a Google customer and Google doing more in retail here at this conference, right? But Wayfair, a customer of ours, was able to burst into the cloud, expand their infrastructure, and then shrink back after those days and never go down for a minute with the applications, not for 1 minute.
I get a feeling that the spike in Aerospike has something to do with the data spikes that you have to deal with.
I think that's part of where the name came from. That's correct.
So this is great to understand. Would love to shift the focus a little bit on some of the special features, attributes of your offering that you offer as part of the Aerospike suite of services and technologies that are unique to what you do and what you offer. So tell us about that.
Yeah, so a lot of the NoSQL databases that are out there today were really written for the convenience of the developer, but as this becomes a core part of the business infrastructure for retailers, for ad agencies, for manufacturing, it becomes necessary for it to scale and perform at levels that we haven't really had the demand for in the past. We work very closely with companies like Intel to actually take advantage of specific hardware progress. So most recently, we've announced support for persistent memory, or PMEM, and Optane, as Intel has branded it, right? And we're one of the first and the only NoSQL database to really support that deeply. And so we program specifically to those things. We have something called our hybrid memory architecture, which lets a company have some of their workloads deal with an in-memory and then on-disk picture, and some deal with flash for the indices, and then on disk, and some all flash, so the indices and the data in flash, but now we're supporting all of it in persistent memory. And what that does is give you the ability to expand your address space to deal with these massive workloads, but also to have the performance that you require at the same time.
No, that's great perspective, and for those in the audience who might not appreciate this, to be able to do things at scale and to be able to do them in a high-performant manner, you have to be aligned with the hardware. You cannot make your decisions for development only by looking at the database or the software. That alignment with the hardware capabilities, be it at a chip level or a CPU level, are absolutely critical to having those high-performance systems at scale.
That's right, that's right. And as I said, I think we're one of the few companies that still performs that, deep tie-in with what the hardware vendors are doing, what the chip vendors are doing, and taking advantage of it. Another area we've taken advantage of is something they call ADQ, which allows you to handle the incoming client requests much better, because you have essentially pipelines directly into the core architectures, the NUMA architectures in the chips, and that's how we scale to handle like 25 million simultaneous customers online with some of our customers against the database.
Right. One more topic when we speak about data, obviously you cannot talk about data without talking about the four-letter words in the industry, GDPR and CCPA. Yeah. How important are these two things in the work that you do at Aerospike?
Well, they're critical, and what's interesting about the time we're living in right now is that consumers want the experience and the personalized experience delivered to them by vendors based upon personal data. But I like to think about this as it's good manners, right? And if you practice good manners with the data, meaning that if you tell me something that's kind of personal so that I can help you with something, I expect you to kind of forget that and not talk about it with other people at all. Right?
Right.
And that's just good manners. And essentially it's the same thing. When you really read GDPR and read the CCPA, things deeply, you find out that all they're doing is saying, look, don't use someone's data without them giving you permission to use it. Like, don't use this thing I told you in ways I didn't say it was okay to. right? And a lot of this is just common sense. So we're building things into the software now to be able to filter it when data moves from one cluster to another, to say these are things that have been tagged as needing to remain in this space and only used for this purpose.
Right.
Other things I can distribute more broadly. So we're enabling our customers to comply with those things. But what's really behind it is what I just call good manners with data.
Look, it's very refreshing for you to talk about common sense, even while you are dealing with high technology, right, or sophisticated technology. I think common sense, obviously, it's like what your grandmother taught you, she could not have been wrong, right? Remember what she taught you, use common sense and you'll be fine.
Exactly. Like in the virtual world, manners count too.
Yeah. No, that's wonderful to know. Let me ask you one last question here, especially as we look at this big show, NRF, and there's so much new stuff that we see here every year. You are playing a big role here with big brands like Wayfair and investing in new technologies. Amongst all of this, if there is one thing that people should take away about Aerospike from NRF 2020, what would that be?
So what I would take away about Aerospike here is that as you delve more into being a data-driven company, whether that means AI and ML or whether it means more traditional algorithms, the need to have data that's available in the moment of your interaction with the customer means the ability to access data in real time that comes from multiple sources. And you don't want to access data that's old because you want to access what the last thing they did. When a person walks into a store, you'd like to know that they just got off your website and were looking at specific things.
Right.
And I think this world of online and in-store comes together in the branded apps that people are spending so much money on now to develop so that they can find, I know that you looked at this, you're in my store, I can help you better. And that's again, sort of that common sense thing of just being able to do better. We all miss that experience where we used to go buy the same stuff from the same store over and over again, and there was someone in that store that knew you.
Right.
And now it's a little more anonymous. But data can bring a lot of that personalization back.
On that note, talking about customer experiences, using common sense, using data, and making sure that as customers go from online to in-store experiences, that seamlessness and the ability to engage with them in a logical, thoughtful manner, that is something that Aerospike wants people to know at NRF 2020. With that, Lenley Hensarling, thank you so much for taking the time.
Thank you.
We appreciate it. Thank you.